Guys, welcome to another video. If you hadn't noticed it, or, I mean, let's be honest, I haven't actually been putting out videos for that long, but if you'd already noticed, I've changed offices. I've moved myself around. When I say offices, I've just moved into another bedroom in the house, so my lass can have the one with the best lighting to do her makeup. That's what she told me was the reason. But anyway, I've been moved, and today we're going to be talking about something very similar in an unfamiliar environment. Of course, we are going to be talking about Rostermania. I'm going to touch on NA a little bit, but I'm mostly going to be talking about Europe because, I mean, well, that's where I'm from, and I sort of know a little bit more about it. First and foremost, though, let's cover the surprise announcement that came, what would have been 2 nights ago by the time this video does go up, and that was EG joining Envy with Hook. Now, first and foremost, I want to talk about Classic, Chino, and Decimate. They've all been set as restricted free agents, which was not really a surprise. We'll see if they get bought out. A couple of decent players in there. Decimate had a poor end towards the season. Chino, of course, got himself a couple of championships, so that's something for him to work on to try and get himself a new team. Sorry, I am reading all this information that I've already wrote down. Classic, again, didn't really have the best year, but we know what he can do on Treyarch games. He has been notoriously pretty decent at them throughout the years. So all those players will probably find themselves on decent rosters. But talking about this team, EG, of course, the world champions, currently going over towards Envious, bringing in Hook. That's a good team for me. I think Hook is a very, very pacey SMG. Him and Apathy together will work wonders. Depending on how the team shapes up with the new meta, obviously with the new game, it's going to be an interesting roster, I think, and I think they'll probably do pretty well. I like that from Envy. They went out and made themselves a bit of a statement. Last year, their team never really got going. It never really caught fire. Had a pretty decent placement at Champs, but just never got going, as said. So I think coming in with the world champions at the beginning of the year is a big, big statement. Now, the main thing I want to talk about with this pickup, I was informed that this was a pickup another team wanted to do. Another team wanted to try and get a hold of that EG roster. Splice were looking at them. It seemed to be the case. I was told it was done and dusted. So it was potential for Splice to go in there and try and get a hold of that EG roster. Obviously bringing Jared in as the 5th, which would have been an equally as scary roster, I feel. So for me now, I am struggling to see where Splice really go. It seems as if a 4-man pickup is what they really wanted to try and get. But now it's going to be a little bit more difficult. There's not many of them out there. There's FaZe sticking, Red Reserve sticking. Those are the only sort of definites I know about. So they're not going to get either of those two. So forming a completely new team is now what Splice have to do. I'm going to maybe make a little suggestion of where they could go with that team later on in this episode. Now I'm going to move over towards the EU side of things. Firstly, I'll just touch on a roster that was announced today, which would have been yesterday by the time you're watching this. Former Epsilon members Reedy, Vortex, and Hawkey are going to stick together. Now, this makes sense because obviously they've got 3 members from Season 2, so they could well and truly be slotting themselves into a pretty decent position. They may well be in pools. They could maybe be at the point of where they could be playing in that relegation to get into the pools on the Thursday before Vegas, but they're in a pretty good spot to try and get themselves in an even better spot to try and get qualified for Pro League. Now they're going to pick up Denza and Nevo. So Denza was on Vitality at Champs, played pretty well. Every single time I've seen Vitality play, everyone had their moments, but I think Denza has always been a pretty consistent guy. He nearly retired throughout the year, but obviously getting that chance on Vitality with Tommy and pretty decent placement at Champs overall. And then going to bring in Nevo as well, who has done a couple of decent things last season. He won the national circuit with Enduro and Co at one point in the UK. He isn't from the UK, but you know, he's one of these players that has always been in and around online in the UK scene, in the European scene, doing work over here. So it's interesting to see that they've went from typically teaming with old guards. So I mean, Reedy, Vortex, and Hoggy are all well-storied players, but you would see them maybe pick up players that, you know, they've teamed with time and time again. And now it's moving away from that. Denza was a good talent last year. Nevo is a talent as well. I think it's a good idea to go in that direction. They've got a good chance of getting themselves to that qualifier to try and qualify for the Pro League, of course. So I like that team, like where they're going. Now let's move to the big boys. Bant's going to Red Reserve. We also knew it was going to happen. That's now obviously went through. Good pickup for them. I mean, there's not much more to say on it. I really like the pickup. I think Bant's going in that team with Zero is going to be great. They're great friends. He was already really good friends with everybody on this team. And it's just the perfect slot for Red Reserve. It's the perfect slot for Bants. I like that pickup. There's not much more to say about it. I am actually going to put my soul on the line here and say I'd be very, very shocked if this team didn't win an event next year. If they play how Red Reserve played last year in World War II, with the addition of bans, I think they're going to be a very, very scary roster. Now, let's move on to some goings on. It seems as if Unilad, or former Unilad, as a lot of people are presuming, because nobody seems to know what's going on with that team in terms of organizations. There's a couple of, obviously, rumors that a couple of other organizations could be coming in. I think something to be prevalent about was former Splice manager Swizz is now joined. I'm going to try and say it. Is it reciprocate? I can't even. I'm actually looking the Twitter up now. How do you say it? I don't even know how to spell it. Hold on. Let's go on Swizz's Twitter, because, I mean, Jesus, if he can say it, I'll show you. Okay. Reciprocity. Team Reciprocity. I don't know. That team, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Anyway, he's joined that. He was the former manager of Splice. I think it was like EU manager, and obviously Swizz has been around in the EU scene forever, so he's joined them. So that only makes me presume that they're searching for a European team. Swizz would be a good guy to get in there to try and help them do that. Unilad could be one of those teams. I mean, we still don't know where Mad Cat's team is going to end up as well. I mean, I'll touch on them in a little second as well, but Unilad now seem to have acquired Tommy. This is just basically off their exchanges from Wuskinson himself to, we've seen them saying, great times when we teamed together, and they were changing profile pictures. It was all very lovey-dovey on Twitter. But at the same time, I don't know if it's just bait. It wouldn't surprise me if it isn't, because Unilad were looking for two. Of course, Alex left to join Mad Cat's team, so it would be Zed, Wuskins, and Shawnee looking for two other members. Tommy seems to be the fourth. That now leads me to their fifth. For me, I think they need to go for a youngster, somebody like Dylan, for example. We've seen Dylan do very, very well in that Brash team in Champs. They were very unfortunate not to get out of groups. I think Dylan makes sense because we've seen Tommy already bring players up who were, you want to say amateurs, novices, and do very, very well with them, notably the twins. Wuskins is already in there. Scraps was one part of that, and Scraps is now one of the best SMGs on the planet. Of course, Scraps has done this work by himself, but Tommy is definitely a factor in that, and how he has found himself in that position is mainly down to him playing well, but at the same time, Tommy gave him and Wuskins that chance on Fnatic, and it worked out fantastically for them. I think Tommy's very, very good at bringing up these players who are new to the professional scene, who, they know what they're doing. They've got plenty of talent. He nurtures that very, very well. For me, I think bringing Dylan into that team, let Tommy have the reins in that team and do what he does best. I think they could be very, very strong as they were last year. For me, as said, I'd like to see them pick somebody young up. Wouldn't surprise me if it's Dylan. As said, he does seem to be the hottest European youngster property at this moment in time. Now moving on to Mad Cat's team. So I was under the presumption that they would try and go for Tommy. I don't know if Tommy sort of decided that he'd rather go with Unilad, or Mad Cat's team decided they didn't want him. Now they're searching for one, and there's nobody of note in Europe that they can really go for. That's the thing. Jade is lying there with Splice. That's something that I thought about that could maybe work out. For Splice, it would be a nice little pickup for them, but I think Jade, Mad Cat, Josh, they teamed together last year. Things didn't work out too well. I think you maybe leave it at that point. They probably look at the evidence of World War II, which was very up and down for Splice, of course, but I think that evidence is enough to put them all off that scenario. Obviously, it didn't work out. All great players in their own respect, but that Splice team last season just didn't work. It just didn't work, so I don't think they're going to go for that. Who else is there in Europe, though? Realistically, yeah, you've got other players such as Moose, Sunny B, guys like that, but I think this team will be looking for something maybe... And maybe they're going to branch their horizons a little bit. They could go for somebody like Moose. They could go for somebody like Sunny B. Realize, guys that have been around forever. But I think this team want to try something new. It's a roster that, outside of Mad Cat and Josh, haven't really teamed together too much. These guys haven't really been in and around the same sort of teams. Of course, Alex coming in there, Dave, they've never teamed together. Dave may well have teamed with Mad Cat, and he's definitely teamed with Josh, sorry, but I don't think he's teamed with Mad Cat. So it's a completely new team to see how it works. A new addition to this roster, hear me out, Denz, I should say, Australian Denz. They should try and get him in. He's already expressed his ideas that he wants to try and get onto a European or a North American team. Another big reason I think Europe wouldn't be a bad shout, I can only imagine getting a visa to the UK is significantly easier than getting one into America. So, I mean, that's a big factor in this scenario. Obviously, they can't practice across the UK and Australian side because, I mean, Den's playing on Australian servers and my Cat and Co playing on a UK server will be very difficult. I've tried playing with Miles before on Blackout. I'm awful anyway, but it was just very difficult. I'm sure Dens would survive, but at the same time, it will be very difficult. Him moving over to Europe is not out of the question for me. I think he's a top player. I think we've seen the rest of the Mindfreak squad. Shox is having to stay because of university commitments. He doesn't want to make that jump quite yet. I understand that. That's fair enough. Mindfreak have given Dens permission to look elsewhere. For me, I think this is as good as he could potentially get. If I was Dens, I'd be asking the question about being the 5th man on this roster. Mad Cat, Dave, Alex, Josh, Dens is a difficult team to deal with. I think they'll be very well suited together. We know Dens has got something to prove. Going into this team full of a couple of EU veterans and some hot talent like Alex, it will be a very dangerous team. I like the idea of that. I haven't got a clue if it's correct, but for me, it's something that could potentially make sense. As I said, his future isn't secure in Mindfreak. He's more than welcome to stay in that team, probably. Like, let's be honest, he was probably the best player last year, with the Shox probably being the 2nd best player last year. For me, Dens, that could be a very good option for him, and that's where we're going to end it. You know, at this moment in time, all these players are making the moves. We're trying to keep up with what's going on, but those are my opinions on a couple of those teams and which directions they could end up going. The direction I'd like to see them end up going. But we'll be back with another video on Rostermania, I'm sure, this week. It's all happening so fast. I'm just trying to keep up as best I can. Reddit is on fire currently, and I haven't got a clue if any goings on is happening right now. You know, Codburner is quiet, and then he's suddenly like blasting loads of things off that pros are then shooting down, so I don't know how reliable he is anymore. But we're going to try and keep up, and I'll keep you guys informed as soon as I know anything that I'm allowed to talk about, of course, because I do know a couple of things that I am not. Right now, though, we're going to end the video here. I hope you enjoyed it. Please click like on the video, subscribe. That would mean a lot to me as well. And we'll be back with more CWL news very shortly. See you guys on the next video.